Leadership and influence in governance and economics are essential for shaping the future of nations. Yet, for too long, many young believers have felt unsupported in stepping into these spheres. At the School of II, we believe that it's time to change that narrative by equipping and empowering a new generation of leaders who carry God's vision into these critical areas. Today, I'm joined by our amazing track leaders, Anna Roncal, who joins us remotely and brings her expertise and passion to this exciting journey. And then we have Rita Rönnqvist joining us here on site. And could I ask you to introduce yourself and to tell a little bit why you are part of this track and what brings you to this place?
Thank you, Roope. So I actually have a background in intercession and worship in the church. And simultaneously with these roles during the last few years, and maybe also because of them, we in our intercession community have really started to develop a heart and a vision for societal transformation.
Yes.
And we've started to also have contacts with some people who are within the church, but also have had these roles in the governmental sphere. So it's really about praying for the nations and starting to develop some of those visions and dreams, what societies really could be like if we could see that God's heart would really be flourishing here.
Exactly, yeah. So, what is your background?
My background is actually master's in theology by education, but during the last years, I've been doing transition studies to organization psychology. I've actually worked in business as well, in organization development. And I've always been very inspired and interested in how people collaborate together in organizations and how leadership functions there and how do all the different levels of people function and interact in organizations.
That's amazing.
So during the last years, I've also had some concrete roles in the governmental sphere. Basically, in the background of things, I've been running a political campaign and think about strategic communication, how to really put out some of those ideas that we need today.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that we have a calling as the followers of Christ to release God's goodness in everywhere we are. So that's basically the passion in my heart as well. And I also believe that because we are tapped into the Spirit of God. So basically, we are tapped into His inspiration, His innovative ideas, how to solve the problems in societies. And so I'm really excited to live exactly in this time and age because so many things are moving around the globe. Continents are shifting, both when we think about how people think and understand reality and understand the roles of individuals in societies and the roles of governments. Everything is shaking and stirring. So this is really the time of the followers of Christ to give them their own input of God's love into solving some of those pressing problems that we see around us.
Thank you. That was so exciting. Now I want to ask Anna to share her heart behind this whole track of government and economics and to explain to us a little bit what's coming up.
Hi, my name is Ana Roncal, and I am part of the team of the School of Inspiration, Innovation, and Influence. I will be taking here in part of the tracks of government and economics together in coherence. Working for the University of the Nations for quite a long time now, I have been mostly dedicated to study and do related research about these two spheres in the Bible. And it's actually a fascinating vision God is giving his people for the sake of the nations. This amazing vision, this amazing perspective has been quite ignored due to a historical misunderstanding from our side, the church. And also, we can see that when Christians, when believers, they realize we need to know this message, this vision in the Bible, um, they don't find the support, they don't find the space. And we have been very unsupporting of people trying to act in these spheres according to God. This has brought tragic consequences, not just for the church, but for the world. And as we can see today in a world in crisis, at this very moment, governments are seizing control not only in politics, but also in economics. In this way, entrepreneurs and people who want to have a project, who would like to have a vision and project themselves in a way that they can achieve success, they have had it very difficult because the conditions the world is offering today are not the best ones. In this way, we have been losing our freedom. We have been losing our possibilities, not just for economics and for business, but also losing that potential that is in us to have a purpose in life and to lead good lives, to lead our families into something good. Governments have been taking our freedoms. Now then, what are the possibilities? Just think about an entrepreneur who knows biblical principles and is successful in his business. He can bring substantial change into his society, into his nation. Yes, a business person that is bringing glory to God because he knows God's ways. This is the possibility we have today. And in the School of Inspiration, Innovation, and Influence, we are going to show you this perspective. You will be able to understand how a business person can be a servant for God, bringing change into a society, understanding his God given role as an entrepreneur who also understands government and how to influence it. This is the possibility we are giving in this track that brings together government and economics.
Thank you for setting the stage so powerfully, Anna. It's clear that this track offers so much potential for students to impact their communities and beyond. What excites you most about helping students step into leadership roles through this track?
What excites me most about this biblical vision of society, of government and economics, is the fact that in this time of global crisis, we can see a new generation arising to do things God's way. When we see the world, we can see crisis everywhere, and everything is failing. We look around, and what we see is the fact that socialism has failed, but also capitalism without God has failed. And who can bring life? Jesus Christ is the only one who can say, I was dead and now I am alive. The power of life is in him. And in this time of crisis, in this time of change and reset in the world, what is best than bringing principles that really work for the sake not just of ourselves, but for the sake of our society, the community where we live? This is what excites me the most. What can bring purpose in life? What do we want to live for? The Bible offers this tremendous perspective that can bring prosperity, success, but also welfare to society. That is what excites me most. The fact that young people can understand this and can initiate a change in the world for God's glory, but also for our own benefit.
That's incredibly inspiring. The idea of aligning governance and economics with biblical principles feels so timely. How does this track prepare students to lead with integrity and bring faith-based solutions to societal issues?
The Bible has it all from the very beginning. From Genesis, we can see that God creates human beings in His image and likeness, and He commands them to multiply and start action. Why? Because God acts and creates, and He creates people, human beings, who are like Him. So we are to understand this. From the very beginning, we are to start action in His image, in communion with Him, according to His character. Is, as we say, coram Deo, in the presence of God. If we don't understand this, we can bring rules and ideas, but it won't have the same effect of justice and peace in a community. We need to understand that holiness is not just a religious term, but it's a moral reality we need to live out so that what we do is really effective and really acts for the welfare of all in a society. This is a key issue. Identity. We have been created to act in the presence of God and like God. This understanding brings a change from the beginning of our tracks.
It's amazing to hear how foundational our identity in God is to leading effectively. Anna, you have worked closely with students. What kind of passion or drive do you think helps someone excel in this track?
To answer these questions, we need to look at the famous. We all know some or more entrepreneurs who are able to influence society. They have become so well known, they have such a reputation that people admire them, follow them. Politicians want to have them by their side. Now imagine that this entrepreneur knows God's ways and he uses this power, he uses this influence to bring God's kingdom into his society. This is the way of joyful discovery. You can really understand how good government, acting for the sake of a nation, for the sake of a community, works together with good economics, the way things are done correctly, and bringing a change for the sake of God, for His glory. This is I think something that can become a passion for the students to understand how great their role, how limitless their role can be if they really understand what it's all about concerning God's government and God's way to run economics.
Anna, thank you for highlighting such a powerful connection between faith, action, and taking the ownership and leadership. So, Rita, can you tell me what connections to influential leaders and mentors can students expect to have during this track?
Yes, we are all about building those connections, personal connections, connections of just discussing, having the dialogue with some of the people who have talked the talk, not only talk the talk, but also walk the walk in their personal histories, in different roles in the governmental sphere. So from very grassroots level of municipal influence to the highest levels of national and European political roles.
Yeah.
We actually have many interesting personalities that we've already contacted and agree that they would love to come and share their experiences. How does the political process actually work? How you can influence it? Explain what are the mechanisms and structures of governmental influence, understand which things are centralized, which things are decentralized, and really just both give the macro view of things, but also very concrete personal experiences of what it is to actually walk and influence on those areas. So we do want to share our networks, basically, and bring these people near our students.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how about the internship?
The internship towards the end of this track will be placed in Brussels. So the students will be having an opportunity to be contacted with some of our partners there.
Yeah.
So basically, they will be helping, serving our contacts, our partners, with whatever help they might need. But at the same time, the students will be able to build their personal networks actually all across Europe.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most important things when it comes to this track, especially like political influence is all about networks and connections and knowing people and working together.
At the end of this training, we do want to see that each student will have some sort of concrete understanding of how they can actually continue growing on the governmental sphere,
Yeah.
so that they would have some concrete path forward that
Yeah.
they feel that they can take then after the school.
Yeah. It's all about building the launching pad so that the students can actually take the step towards their dream to come true. So thank you. And question to Anna. How does teamwork work together with this track and what kind of role it has?
Teamwork or association. These are very key terms in the biblical perspective of government and economics. We cannot think of an entrepreneur who tries to change things alone, especially in a world where governments have distorted so much the sphere of economics. And working in team, working in association with others, is a precondition in the Bible, and it starts in the very first levels of life. This has been understood by the many cultures from antiquity. Just think of the term economics. It comes from the Greeks. The Greeks put oikos, the household, and nemein, management, together. From there, we have economics. And then we can see that many enterprises that started as family business, they became clan businesses, and then later big corporations acting like the city on a hill that is a focal point for a society. People can follow and can learn from them. So economics and government, they both need association. Entrepreneurs working together and exercising influence so that they can bring about the best conditions for businesses. They can find them in the Bible. This is something that we need to learn. The term association, teamwork, needs to be learned from the very instances, the very first instances of life, and needs to be reproduced in other levels of authority, according to what we see in the Bible.
Collaboration is such a crucial element, especially in these challenging times. So how does this track align with the mission of equipping leaders to be able to trust the pressing world issues?
Concerning world pressing issues, when we think of geopolitics and macroeconomics, we can realize that for a century now, governments have been taking away decision-making power from the citizens, centralizing authority. So they have been taking away freedoms, not just in the higher public spheres, but also from the very basic instances of life. Especially in the West, this has been leading to a crisis. Of course, these schemes have been promoted and taught in the rest of the world, and many nations don't have the possibilities of have these huge states that are supposedly the ones that need to provide for the people. This has brought a tremendous crisis in the world at this present time. Now, this local national scheme has precisely brought also this global crisis we see today, because nations are trying to change things their own way. And we can see new alliances of power are emerging. New blocks of nations are gathering together. So, apart from the problems we have in our nation, now we need to look out of our nation and see what is happening in the world. Who is getting in alliance with others? The balance of power is changing. Is this good? Is this wrong? Of course, if we don't have the right perspective for national issues, we cannot have the right perspective for global issues as well. And in the School of Inspiration, Innovation, and Influence, you will understand the principles that make nations succeed, not just internally, but also in the global scene. Because this is a promise from God. You can find this promise in the Bible that if nations follow God's commands, they will have a status in the international scene. So we can understand global issues, the pressures nations are facing. When we discern the nations are doing the right things or the wrong things, and then we can understand what alliances and new balances of power are pretending. It's all in the Bible.
That's such a compelling vision of leadership in today's world. Finally, Anna, what would you say to someone who is considering pursuing leadership and public service through this track?
Actually, it is not a choice, because God has created us to exercise authority, dominion. And a person who wants to pursue a career in public service, if he or she knows God's ways, is almost part of a natural process, an outcome to become a civil servant in society. This is something we need to accept as from God for our lives. So it must be liberating. We can embrace all what God has for us, including civil authority, public service. In the Bible, we see in the book of Deuteronomy that nations need to go for elections and choose wise, understanding, and experienced people. So if we know God's ways, we are those who are called to bring the right government in our society. If we understand, as the Bible says, the connection in between our personal life, our family life, our business life, and how that builds society, we are building also a position of authority in our society that makes it natural for us to take that position and to serve others, to help them to become entrepreneurs and people who prosper and thrive in society. That is the nature of civil government in the Bible.
Thank you, Anna. And Rita, would you want to say something also for those who might be thinking about this school and this track especially?
Yes, what actually excites me personally a lot is that we have different tracks in the school that are going to cooperate, are going to have a dialogue. especially with the governmental track, I think the concept of communication and language is very important.
Yeah.
Because we can see that it's all about the one narrative challenging another. Somebody could talk about information war or war or battle between the narratives and so forward. We see a lot of strong political influence behind concepts, words, how to define them. So I believe that we are in front of a challenge that we really need to create a new language even of how we actually define things, how we define the role of an individual in the bigger picture, how we define the different concepts that have to do with culture, we have to do with good and evil, have to do with justice and so forward. So these are very big questions, and I happen to know that there are some inspiring persons on the other tracks as well who have very interesting takes on language and on meanings and so forward. So I'm really looking forward to the collaboration with the media track, but also the business track, because that's all about self-sustaining and creating sustainable, also economically sustainable solutions for different governmental influences and influence in that sphere. So I'm really excited myself to be sort of like having the possibility to actually be part of that discussion with the students, with all the track leaders, and so forward. So really looking forward to some groundbreaking and good discussions.
Yes, me too. And that's actually the beautiful thing of this school, because even though if a student comes to government and economics track, they will be also really closely with those who are studying something different, but with the same heart. So that brings the possibility of creating above your own sphere together with those who can actually help you to get your message out to the media track coming in, helping those who wants to bring challenging conversations, for example, about these things, or communicating through the dance track. And there's so many different ways to do these things, and so often we are so limited with our own way of seeing things, and it really opens up the understanding when there are different kind of people in the same room who think the same but looks it from the different point of view.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and I really hope that we will get lots of those young people who are so excited about influencing the society, wants to do something important, meaningful, and thinks that they have something to say. So, please join us. Let's do this. Thank you, Rita and Anna, remotely. Thank you both for so much for sharing your wisdom and passion for this vital area of influence. It's been an absolute pleasure digging into what the government and economics track offers. So, if you feel called to lead with purpose in governance, economics, or other spheres of influence, this is your opportunity. At the School of III, we are ready to equip you for the journey ahead, one that aligns your talents and faith with God's transformative vision for the world. And remember, before you can see the change, you have to be the change.